Democrats trying to regain control of the House, and they are apparently looking for a few good vets. The party is reportedly recruiting military veterans to run in next year's midterm elections. So far, House Democrats have recruited 6 to run in traditionally Republican-leaning districts, including Jerry Cannon, a retired Army Major General in Michigan, Kevin Strauss in Pennsylvania, he's a veteran of the Iraq and Afghanistan wars, and another Iraq war veteran, Jim Mower, in Iowa. Democrats would need to pick up 17 seats to take back the House, which is firmly under GOP control. In the Senate right now, Democrats hold a 5-seat majority. So let's debate whether or not this is a good plan and a strategy. Simon Rosenberg is president and founder of the think tank NDN and a former campaign advisor for President Bill Clinton. Mark Thiessen is a fellow at the American Enterprise Institute and a former chief speechwriter for President Bush. Gentlemen, thanks for being here.
It's good to be here.
Thanks, Alden.
Simon, let me start with you. Is this good sense for the Democrats, or is this just a baldly political move that they are being transparent in doing?
Well, I think 2 things. One, Democrats for a long time have tried very hard to recruit candidates who come from their district and fit their district. There isn't a cookie-cutter type of Democrat. Democrats are a very diverse party, and they're used to that. And I think the second thing is that Democrats are a diverse party. They want all voices and all races and creeds and people from all over the country. And I think that this is completely consistent with the Democratic Party's approach to politics, which is they want all comers and they value the diversity inside their party.
Sure, but they're not saying, hey, we want all comers right now to apply. They're like, any of you veterans, come on in. Mark, what do you think?
Well, I think Simon puts a pretty nice gloss on the Democratic Party's openness to all points of view. But look, I think this is very good. This is good for the Democrats. It's bad for the Republican Party, but it's good for the country. I think, quite frankly, we need more combat veterans in both parties because both parties have taken a turn towards dovishness and isolationism. I mean, on the Democratic side, you used to have what was known as the Scoop Jackson Democrats, who were liberal on domestic policy but hawkish on foreign policy, and they're basically an extinct breed right now. And we saw that in the debate over Syria, where the president struggled mightily to get Democrats to support even the most limited strikes against the Assad regime. And then on the Republican side, you've got the rise of isolationists like Rand Paul and Ted Cruz and Justin Amash in the House, and you saw their influence when 4 out of 10 Republicans voted to shut down the NSA's terrorist surveillance program, and when Republicans said in the sequester, they said no tax increases, but yeah, you can have massive defense cuts, automatic defense cuts. So I think we have a problem where there's dovishness and isolationism creeping in both parties, and I think it would be good to have more combat veterans and people who are hawkish on foreign policy in both the Republican Party and the Democratic Party.
Though, I mean, just being a veteran doesn't necessarily make you a hawk and, you know, ready for war. Sometimes, as we've seen with Colin Powell and people like that, they're the ones who push most for peace. So let's look at the numbers, Simon, for a second. In the House, as we understand it, there are 87 veterans currently serving. Sorry, let's look at the Senate first. Okay, the House. Total 87 veterans. There are 21 of those are Democrats, 66 are Republicans. Democrats could use to bolster their numbers.
Well, I think what Mark is saying, I consider myself one of the last Scoop Jackson Democrats, by the way. So, Mark, there's a few of us left. And remember, the other thing is that both the Secretary... one of the Secretary of State and the Secretary of Defense in the current administration are both veterans. And Chuck Hagel, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Mark, well, Chuck Hagel, I think, is who's a Republican, was the first actual infantryman, right, to go all the way up to be the Defense Secretary, right? So we actually have in the administration a significant presence in the foreign policy making circles of veterans. I think that what you're going to see in the coming years, though, because so many Americans have served overseas and in combat in recent years, that you're going to see an increase in combat veterans serving in Congress in both parties, just because more Americans have served. And I think it is, as we've learned throughout American history, combat veterans do very well in politics. They are heroes. They can often win primary or close elections, and they bring really needed experience to a time when America's role in the world is arguably more important than it's ever been.
And moreover, Mark, I mean, just if we're looking at the plain politics of it, the thinking of Democrats, I believe, is that if you have a veteran running as a Democrat, it's harder for Republicans to paint them as a liberal.
Sure,
and so
absolutely.
That's effective.
And I mean, if you look at the That's absolutely right, and these are people who are going to challenge pro-defense Republicans for the most part in pro-defense districts. So it's a smart move politically for the Democrats to do it. But also look at specifically who these people are that the Democrats have chosen. So you've got Suzanne Patrick, who is a Pentagon official in the Bush administration, who's running in Virginia Beach. You've got Jerry Cannon, whose picture you showed before. He was the head of detainee operations at Guantanamo Bay in 2003, at the height of the time when Democrats were alleging torture was taking place in Guantanamo Bay. He's now the Democrats' candidate for Congress in Michigan. And then you've got Kevin Strauss, who was an Army Ranger, as you pointed out, in Iraq and Afghanistan, but he also spent 6 years at the CIA's Counterterrorism Center, the people who gave us enhanced interrogation and drone strikes. So this is a really interesting set of candidates that the Democratic Party has recruited, and it shows really, I think, how desperate they are to take back Congress.
Well, it is an interesting crop of candidates. Simon, it sounds like Mark is saying the Democrats have to act like Republicans to get elected.
Listen, I have been on this show with Mark many times, and I have never been happier with Mark than I've been today. Mark is making the case the Democrats aren't being desperate, but smart, strategic, and effective in the way that they're, positioning themselves for the midterm elections. And I do want to say that I think that, I don't think the Republican lock in the House. I don't think the Republicans have a lock in the House. I mean, I think it's 17 seats. There's not a lot of seats. We've seen big swings back and forth for both parties, right, in recent elections. And I don't think the Republicans are governing that well right now. They're not convincing the American people that they're doing a good job with the trust they have. So if the Democrats put a good field in place, a deep one, a broad one, they could win this thing back. And certainly this strategy looks, as according to Mark Thiessen anyway, looks to be an effective one.
I'm going to let the bromance stop right there, okay? That's where we're going to stop it on this note of unity between you guys. Simon and Mark, thanks so much.